Hey everyone, happy Friday. We made it through another week, but before the weekend, we have one last chat with Chakra Davala of TekVizion, enabling seamless and interoperable communication solutions. Chakra, how are you?
Very good, Evan. Thank you very much. Yeah, happy Friday.
Happy Friday. It's been a while. We have a lot to catch up on. Before that, perhaps for those who might not be aware of TekVizion, who are you guys? What's your mission with customers?
Our mission is primarily to make sure that business communications work well, and the
Hmm.
user experience for that business communications is optimal for the end users. So that way, ultimately, business communications drives productivity, and the teams and all of these things. So our mission is to make sure, irrespective of what technology they're working, the business communications user experience is the best.
Yeah, we're going to dive into that. And you've been in this game of interoperability and testing and certification for like 2 decades, which, sorry, I'm calling you out as getting old here.
Of
But
course.
what have you seen change in particular over the last even months, year since you've
Oh
been at
gosh,
this?
so much has changed. I mean, it's from where we were. A lot of one of the biggest shift that I see is things are changing more into the software, right? I mean, we all
Mm,
telecommunications and whether even with VoIP, a lot of it was all hardware boxes,
mm,
hard phones, and nowadays who uses? I mean, there are a lot of hard phones, of course, but we're all on Teams or WebEx or
mm,
Zoom. Whether it's on a mobile, you can take your meetings, you can
mm,
review documents in the airport on your mobile, right? So from that perspective, everything has moved into software centric
mm,
communications. And the second big shift is, of course, things moving to the cloud, right? And both of them actually, interestingly, creates a new challenge, which is very unique to real-time communications for us, because this when you move to cloud and software, people tend to change things so fast, right? I mean,
mm,
unless in the horror, like you have gateways or switches. There were versions, and once you deploy it, it could stay there for maybe a few years, but you upgrade once a year or once every 6 months or something. But today, there's so many. For example, Microsoft or Zoom or WebEx, they release an update every month.
wow.
So that's pretty sensitive. So our UC or basically business communications are very sensitive to change. So, but the question is, how do you test it? How do you make sure that from an end-to-end perspective, nothing broke when everybody? I love the word that Kevin keep he was using, what's called CI/CD blind spot. So it's like
Yeah.
having a game. Let's say if you have a team, and each player has their own game plan, but they're not all aligned as a team game, right? So that's a challenge in our world right now. So the cloud providers have their own CI/CD, the SBC vendors have their, firewalls get updated, everything is changing at their own, pace. The question is, how do you make sure all of it works together? So that's a huge change. And the other big shift that more recently that we are seeing is, of course, the whole AI, and ever since last year, it's everywhere. And especially from a customer experience perspective, more and more you see so much change from that perspective, right? I mean, AI is uh, many UC and CC, especially contact center players, integrating AI into it, from conversational AI or chat bots and message bots, and you name it. So it's a fun time, but it's also like so much change.
Yeah, and your partnerships with tech giants, you mentioned Zoom, Microsoft, Cisco, so many others. They're really intriguing. Tell us about those collaborations and how they worked and the value that offers all of their clients and yours.
Yeah, no. So we have these partnerships for example, Microsoft since 2007, when this came
Mm,
out with the OCS and LCS and all of those days. And Cisco relationship goes even further. The whole, I think they both, all of, and Zoom more recent one, but their principle is these communication systems have a lot of adjacency applications and systems, peripherals, devices that together they provide a solution. And they somehow mastered the art of an ecosystem. Microsoft and Cisco, as you know, they have hundreds of partners, right? I mean, Zoom is in the same realm. So all of these partnerships, you need somebody like an independent lab to validate it. I'll tell you quickly this story. Early on, when we first started this program, let's say, for example, if a platform provider like Cisco wanted to do their own testing, right? How can you have a neutral viewpoint when you're testing something, when you're testing, from a viewpoint of your own product, right? So what we did as a company, we chose purposely as one of the core tenets of the company to be product agnostic, right? So if I don't have a bias towards an SBC vendor or a Microsoft or a Cisco, when I have to put the whole solution together, I am going to look at it as a neutral viewpoint to make the whole solution work, rather than I'm saying I'm leaning my bias towards Microsoft or Cisco or Oracle SBCs or Ribbon, whatever. I'm just giving those names as an examples, but there's several. They're like device poly devices or Crestron or you just Jabra, you name it. All of these. So when we look at it, we just look. We're completely product agnostic. We're solution centric and testing the whole solution and making sure will it work. So that kind of core business principle actually really helped us, and that's what helped drive the trust between whether it's Microsoft, Cisco. And so now today, what happened is they came a point to where they won't support some of this thing unless we test and certify those solutions. So that's a huge trust that they put on us, and we don't take that lightly. I always keep telling our team, right? So nobody comes and watches over my shoulder when I'm testing and somebody. So we have to be absolutely thorough and 100% committed in that, and that we don't take that very lightly. So over a period of time, we obviously won the trust of all these great partnerships.
And it's not just about the partnerships, it's about the users and the emphasis that you put on user experience testing. You mentioned that we've all had, the experience of bad communications, meetings gone wrong, bad voice, video quality, reliability. So how do you translate what you do in the lab into, the more reliable, high quality enterprise communication service, in the field with real users?
No, that's a great. So one of the things that when we test, we always emulate the entire solution from an end-to-end perspective. So we're not testing in an isolated, like a product environment. So it's almost like a scaled down version. Of course, it is not like if you take a deployment of a large enterprise or even a service provider offering. So we have, for example, we have like 3 full instances of BroadSoft switches in our lab. So it's almost like we can emulate an entire carrier network and an enterprise network with trunks coming in from whether it's PRI trunks or SIP trunks or you name it, whatever the scenario may be. And we emulate that whole end to end. And now we are making calls as if the call is coming from the PSTN call or within the network call, on-net call, off-net calls. So when you do that level of testing, so we are always looking from a user's experience perspective, right? How does the user perceive whether something on an SBC or in the BroadSoft switch or a core network is misconfigured? We'll know what happened, whether it is, let's say, a voice is let's say something is not provisioned, a meeting session is not provisioned or something like that. So we're obviously immediately experiencing that problem from a user's perspective. right?
Yeah, that's really impressive, and I'm just putting up your website here because I have questions,
Okay.
and you have a lot of answers. You talk a lot about operational efficiency too. You know, if you're a contact center, time is money, and a high quality interaction it has a meaningful bottom line. So this is more than just, you know, testing in the traditional sense, right? This is about business outcome and business impact.
Absolutely. So we recently, I think in last week or something, we just our team posted some article on how telephony integration. One of the things that when enterprises are decided to migrate to the cloud, several of them want to bring their own carrier relationships forward, right? But the important thing is, if the carrier relationship, the carrier integration is not, validated, and the migration doesn't happen in time. So take an enterprise like, let's say, for example, they have 5,000 seats and they have 10 sites, but they have a couple of sites in another country. So they may have one carrier, large carrier in US, but then another carrier in Europe. So how do you make sure that when they move to the cloud, whether it is Teams or whether it is WebEx or Zoom or whatever the case may be, that these telephony integrations are all working? And if you
Mm,
those don't work, even a little delay and everything, something happens, the whole project gets delayed, and the value that was supposed to be recognized is obviously delayed, right? So that is where we have been helping with uh, large platform providers, even large enterprises, trying to develop this testing. And we provide what's called a, a blueprint configuration guides. In fact, I was just talking to one of the large platform providers, their PS services, their professional services. They may be doing the migration, but if they have a blueprint, they can do those migrations much faster. So we can preset it up, test it all out, and build those configuration guides so they can just quickly get the project done. So it's more, it's that's why I think we called it the ace it the first time, right? Instead of try it, make some mistake, and it's trial and error. So that's a good example.
that's fantastic. I was actually looking at the website here a moment ago. One of your testimonials was performing 4 hours of testing in 4 minutes, which
Yes.
what was the technology or the innovation behind that? That sounds pretty intriguing.
Yeah, no, we realized that when things are changing so fast, we cannot do manual testing. So we have to automate testing, and we have to scale testing so that way we can stay ahead of these changes. So what we did is, so we looked at this problem in a very unique way, Abin. If you look at the network and imagine the network is like a black box.
Mm,
If you don't send anything into it and don't get anything out of it, it'll work it is in an ideal state. You don't change anything, it'll work good. So then we said, okay, why not automate the egress and ingress points into the network? So whatever is traffic, calls, meetings, anything that is going into. And the best way to automate that is to actually emulate the users who are using that endpoints. So we leveraged some of the latest technology of optical character recognition, RPA, robotic process automation, and some AI, and all of these things, and built bots. And these bots will uh, basically emulate users. So if you put a
mm,
bot in front of this Teams client, or let's say a Zoom client, or a WebEx, or whatever the case, or even a devices, so we can the bots will emulate all the actions, so that way we can run through a whole suite of test cases, instead of somebody manually doing it. The bots can run it, and then the beauty of it is they can run off hours. They can, that's a nice part of automation, right? You can do it pretty much 7 by 24 if required. In
wow.
fact, we call this what we call as application performance monitoring, or continuous testing, for example, of Teams. So because things are changing constantly, so you can just test on a continuous basis. So we automated that all of this through our core automation platform, and that is how we were able to get from 4 hours to 4 minutes. You click it, you run it, and it's all there. And then somebody can go look. And if anything fails, then it'll generate an alert, and then people can go look at it.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So there's a lot of infrastructure, hardware, softwares, people behind the work you do
Of
that
course.
people really don't see beyond the website or, this two-dimensional video chat.
Yeah.
Describe the working environment, the lab, the processes behind the scenes that you
Yeah.
use that might not
So
be evident to the
we have
viewers.
honed in this whole best practices of testing. So this testing is one thing our is become our beloved, right? So we have one of the largest lab here in Dallas, Texas.
Mm,
Close to 300 vendor products every
wow.
from a core network to edge devices and phones, and you name it, everything, right? It can be recreated. So of course the working we work with the customer, we gather the requirements, we understand what the scope of what they're trying to do, and how does it fit into the whole network, into the whole solution. And we take that and test it from a complete end to end. And we have a lot of best practices, and even internally, even if there is. So one of the thing is, when you're testing, it is easy to say, okay, this thing failed, and hand it back to the vendor, whether it's whoever the
Mm,
vendor is, right? It could be SBC vendor, it could be a cloud. But our team is really like the design engineers. So
okay.
they are so good at the protocol level. They go down to the SIP messaging, or even TCP, whatever the networking. If sometimes network level issues could happen, right? It's not just this thing. So they will go look at it and say, oh, this packet is not coming from this vendor. Henceforth, it is not working. And that's why it is, Mr. Vendor, it's your fault, and we cannot do finger pointing. So that is the level of value that we create and we give to our customers when we are doing the testing, because we don't want to say, hey, something is not working, and our customer then have to take so long time to figure out, recreate the problem. We already have it all set up, right? So we bring the customer in, we get on a call, we tell them where the problem is and why the problem is happening, and in some cases how to fix it.
Mm,
What happens is, imagine this. Let's say, for example, a Microsoft Teams or a WebEx is working with an SBC vendor and connecting to a carrier like a Verizon or an AT&T or
mm,
a Lumen or whatever, right? And we know that this SBC vendor behaves a certain way in certain messaging. So
mm,
if the message comes from, let's say, the cloud platform provider, Teams or WebEx or whoever, and the failure is happening, and we tell the vendor, we said, this is why it is not working, and if you want this to work, this bit has to be flipped here. That is the level of detail, and that's why several of these vendors, their engineering teams love our relationship too, because when you give that level of detail, it's easier for them to go fix problems.
that's
So
wonderful. We,
very,
we used to call it one throat to choke, which isn't a very nice analogy
very
to use, but it definitely gets over the finger pointing that you often see in these scenarios. So
absolutely,
so
absolutely.
well done. And how do you maintain all that expertise across all those vendors and all those kinds of solutions? That must be quite a task, the knowledge base alone.
Absolutely. See, that is one of the things that we are trying to actually figure out how to. We have knowledge systems internally, but that's a great point. I think we try to foster a culture of like a teamwork, and
Mm.
one of the thing is, our average several people here with our company have been with me from pretty much year one of our business.
Oh, nice.
Some of average is like 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. I think because it's a culture of how we respect each other, and we are primarily technologists first, and we look at solving problems, and everybody loves that, and we give them the freedom to and the space for everybody to work freely and make decisions and do what's right for the business and for the customer, because we always made customer as number one first. So we look at them and say, how can we help them? Because they're also trying to take a product to the market, and create new innovations. And sometimes it's challenging when you're working with all these things. So we work with, imagine like whether it's Microsoft or Cisco or Zoom or any of them, when they come up with something, we start our process very early. We collaborate and work together, and so we kind of build that culture internally. And I think luckily we didn't lose a lot of people. So
That's great. Wonderful approach. So, what are you looking forward to? What's next in terms of new services, partnerships, maybe events coming up? We're in
yeah,
Q4
so
here. What are you looking forward to?
no, yeah, absolutely. So what I've talked about, all these teams, Zoom, WebEx. So if you look at business communications, there are two halves to it. One is the employee side of it, which everybody calls as employee experience, right? This is
Mhm.
where two Teams and Zoom and all of these productivity enabling applications come into play. And the other half of it is the customer experience. So we have done extremely well over these years, building that trust and relationship, and as we just talked about, now the employee experience side, we have that this thing. So what we have been working on is on the customer experience side of it. So we recently have been working on a platform which is primarily see, on the customer experience side, it's very complex. It's actually
Mm.
more complex from the customer experience. Imagine that you are calling into an airline, you're traveling, and your flights got canceled. You're quickly trying to get rebooked. And how is that customer experience? And you are an avid traveler.
Mm.
You know how to navigate that, but a stay-home mom who got stuck in the airport, she doesn't know how to navigate that. She tries to call up some number. So what we are building is we're building using AI these what we call customer personas, and these customer personas can be used to test to whether it is IVR or IVAs,
Mm.
walkthroughs. The whole idea is to emulate these customers and start testing the customer's experience using these personas,
Oh, wow.
and using AI to create these dialogue scripts. So let's say, for example, a stay-home mom goes through this IVR experience. What would her experience be? And building a scripts and then running through a certain workflow and testing it for whether it's an airline or whether it is Home Depot or whatever the case. So we're building that platform and working. So that's our next thing. We will be making some big announcements very soon. We didn't really kind of announce that or work. So we recently acquired a small company, and integrating that technology of bots and all of that stuff into the.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think we're breaking some news. So that's exciting
Yeah,
to hear. And the conversational AI space is just on fire. There's
yeah,
so much opportunity. And there's also so many challenges with getting it to work well in the real world. So well done on that. And yeah, look forward to diving into that on maybe a future topic. So thanks for the update. We'll try to make it not so many months from to the next one. So look forward to catching up soon. And we're almost at the end of the day here. Have a great weekend. And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to me or TekVizion with any comments or questions you might have. Thanks, Chakra.
thank you very much. Thanks, Evan, and happy